0-3 to start the regular season. What went wrong against Colorado, and a couple of interesting updates heading into the Ottawa game coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you listen to your podcast. You can watch the show on YouTube. Be sure to check us out there, and you can become a part of our Locked On Sabres text club, and that's always going to be over on the website. To sign up, at least join subtext.com/Locked On Sabres. From there, you're good to text, ask a question, updates, if that's what you're in there for. Be sure to hit us up. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here. Today's episode is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Download the FanDuel app right now. Visit FanDuel.com. Win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. A 3-1 defeat at the hands of the Colorado Avalanche. We'll go through what happened in the game. Another game where the Sabres showed an inability to score goals. Hopefully, like me, you were on the under in this game. It's my sneaky bet of the day going into yesterday's matchup. 2-0-1, by the way, on the season. Just took the unders a couple of times, and maybe we'll continue riding that train because the Sabres not scoring 2 or 3 goals in a game, you're going to hit the under almost every single time. So a lot to get to on this Colorado matchup. Stay tuned. Jiri Kulich might not play tomorrow against Ottawa. Very interesting little scenario that's ongoing between Lindy Ruff and one of his top centers and how the lineup is shifting around, guys that are coming back. I think things are really on the fly here for the Sabres as they're trying to find their first win of the regular season. So a lot to get to on today's show. Afternoon game on a Monday, you didn't have a full capacity crowd, but they did pretty well. It was announced 16,462. The game was not really all that energetic. Didn't see a lot of atmosphere in that game. I was not in the arena for this game. Really, when I saw this game, I was wondering, like, all right, what might really get this crowd energized? Big hits. Will we see a fight tonight? Because the offense isn't doing it. And will there be anything else? And there really wasn't much. The thing that maybe you saw come out of the crowd more than anything were the fire Kevyn Adams chants, which, should we be surprised? It only took 3 games to get into fire Adams chants in the crowd. They were not the loudest chants. I think it was more like not the whole building, not even a whole section. Maybe it was like half a section of people were chanting to fire Adams. That's only going to grow, though. That is only going to continue. Although maybe there is a conversation to be had this week when we have a show with an off day here between games to talk about what the timeline is like here for Adams, for even Lindy this season, because I don't think if they just are horrible to start the season here and they go like 1-8, 1-9, 1-10, 2-10, whatever, I don't think everybody survives that. I think changes are made if it is that bad. And hey, we're like a third of the way there, or maybe we're halfway there. I don't really know what that timeline is, but I'll get into that a little bit later in the week on what we might be looking at here. Or maybe they'll lose 10-0 tomorrow, and that'll kind of accelerate the process here. So Friedman was talking about that this week as well, about, what the timeline could be. And he mentioned Jarmo Kekalainen, and then they got into Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson a little bit. So the big picture is really kind of on trial here for the Buffalo Sabres. Friedman called it, let me just put it this way, because I want to talk this more in detail in another show, but the thing to keep an eye on or an ear out for is that Friedman on 32 Thoughts, he's never going to give you everything he knows. In fact, last year, he knew about the Dahlin meeting with Kevyn Adams at the deadline, and he told Paul Bissonnette, and Bissonnette let that get out there. And even Friedman was like, yeah, I really wish that didn't get out there. And that was on me. What that is to say, though, is Friedman knew of a meeting between Dahlin and whatever. He's an insider. He knows things in the league, and he's not going to say every single thing he knows out in the public. So sometimes you got to kind of read between the lines. On his podcast, 32 Thoughts, Elliotte Friedman said that this is a big week for the Buffalo Sabres. maybe that's a little bit of an indicator of what we're looking at here. That if the Sabres were to drop a couple of games in a row here, start 0-5, and maybe one of the losses is like really embarrassing. They play Ottawa tomorrow and then Florida on Saturday and then Montreal next Monday. 3 games in the next 6 days. Big week. How big? Maybe firing big is a possibility. We shall see. More on that coming a little bit later on in the week. Let's get into this Sabres and Avalanche matchup, though. That was the same score as the previous game. 3-1 at the hands of a very, very good team. Different than Boston. Boston, not a very good team, in my opinion. Colorado's a juggernaut. Colorado up front, on display. 2 of the best players in the world. Nathan MacKinnon is just unbelievable. The deflection behind his own back, to turn his hips the way he did, score on a backhand, make Ryan McLeod look like a rookie. And he's a good veteran defensive center that they were trying to match up with him, and MacKinnon just schooled him multiple times throughout the game, and especially on that goal. The Makar goal is more just a giant glaring mistake by Rasmus Dahlin. He's trying to make something happen. He's trying to get an odd man rush started up the board. So he tries to one-time pass and he turns it over immediately. And then he doesn't get back to cover Makar. Tough look there from Dahlin. I thought that's a moment that's going to be tough for him to top in terms of his worst of the season. So that's not great. And then MacKinnon just walks Owen Power and is able to rip one past Alex Lyon. You got 2 special players for Colorado making big game-changing plays, and the Sabres just don't have a lot of that. The only, again, 2 goals now on the season, 1 in Boston, Zucker, shots deflected by a Bruin. Here, Tage Thompson gets a goal. That's good. Love to see Tage on the board, and you love to see them score anything, right? But this goal even, I mean, it's a wrist shot. Tage got a nice wrist shot, but it's a wrist shot from distance. He's almost all the way at the blue line, and Scott Wedgwood is unable to make the save without really much traffic in front of him. There's no Sabre in front of him. One of his own teammates is kind of blocking him out, and I think that's probably why the goal goes in. But I kind of feel like both Sabre goals this year have been a little bit soft. So I don't think they've proven anything to score goals. And not that anyone that would say, they've scored 2 goals in 3 games is proof they could score anyway. They're not going to be able to score a lot this year, I don't think. And 2 goals in 3 games is just the start of it. So some of the stats in this game: shots on goal, Colorado does outshoot the Sabres 37-29 in this game. Shot attempts actually were in favor of Buffalo, but this is kind of what they're doing. They're just firing from bad angles. They're firing from low quality scoring opportunities. So 66-63, not really all that impressive. 27-27, a little bit more impressive on the scoring chances in this game. And even the high danger were 11-11. So better there, but expected goals on the night, 3.2 for Colorado, 2.3 for the Buffalo Sabres. Colorado, the better team on this night, and they deserve to win the hockey game, in my opinion. Alex Lyon, I thought, played fine. I think he's giving them chances to win. They just have to find opportunities, and they have to generate more offensively, and maybe help is on the way for that, but it has not been a good start at all for the Sabres on that front. So still no scoring. This game, that's a great team. The Sabres, as you saw the top line getting a little bit more in terms of chances, I think we saw a nice little experiment here from what Lindy Ruff was playing around with. I did like Josh Doan on the top line. My expectations were not that high for this player offensively, but I liked the mix with him and Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch all on the same line. I was impressed by that. However, it's probably short-lived because Zach Benson is coming back. So Doan back down to the middle 6 is probably what you're in line for. So, looking at Owen Power in this game, just wanted to point this out about him. Owen Power, I thought he had a really nice first period. Sabres, by the way, in general, one thing they improved on was they had a better first period. After horrifically bad first periods against both the Rangers and the Bruins, they were better against the Colorado Avalanche. Were they great? No. But they outshot Colorado in the first period. And I'll take that every day of the week. But I think a lot of that was Power. Power, Darlene, you had two different studs running two different pairings that are out there for, 80% of the time. I thought that was a really, really good look at what, the Sabres are when they could be good. If they could ever be good, would be those two controlling the ice, and they're almost always out there. Power, Lindy even said this, Power, though, maybe got a little fatigued late in the second and into the third period because that goal McKinnon scored right in his face in the third, like he maybe ran out of gas, but he had been sick. He had been battling injuries. I think Power's kind of fighting it to be out there. So hoping he's healthy, because if you can get him that first period version of Power through an entire game, hopefully it'll look a little bit better for the Buffalo Sabres in general. The other thing I want to point out from this game that, again, like improvement, looked a little bit better, but still not scoring, the power play. 0 for 3 on the power play. I like that they put Jiri Kulich out there on the power play. A couple more chances from him on the right flank, but still 0 for 3. They had 4 scoring chances. It's better than the 1 they had against Boston, but now 0 for 11 to start the regular season. And that is going to have to turn around, in part because I don't see the Sabres 5-on-5 scoring really turning around in a big enough way. They've got to get hot on the power play. And I think it's time. It might be time for drastic measure. More and more, I'm starting to wonder and question, how great are the Sabres' top players at the power play specifically? Not every great scorer is great on the power play. I mean, a smaller version of that is JJ Peterka. Last 2 years, especially 2 years ago, as he became a better and better goal scorer, most of it was at even strength. He never really was a good power play player. And some guys are just like that. I don't think that's Tage. Tage has proven an ability to score power play goals, and I think his lack of production is more about there's nobody else to worry about on the Sabres unit, so everybody just shades all their coverage towards him. He's a guy that did have, 20 power play goals in a season once. The guy I'm wondering more about is Darlene. Is Darlene good for the power play? Good on the power play? Because skill set wise, there's no reason to think he shouldn't be. He is a dominant, controlling defenseman, great skater, great passer, he's got a nice shot. But for some reason, it just doesn't work. What I would try, maybe you don't want to take him off the power play totally, is let's remove him from the point. You got an opening there on the right flank with Josh Norris out. Throw Darlene over there. He's a left shot. He'll be on his one-timer, and I don't think he's got the best shot in the league, but he's got a good shot. He's got a better shot than some of the other guys they've been putting in there, like Ryan McLeod. Throw Darlene on the right flank. Let Power distribute at the top of the power play unit. Not the Power, too, himself hasn't been amazing on the power play. But let's go. Let's start experimenting with some things, because just sitting there and making one little change here and one little change there, but in essence, you're kind of doing the same thing where Darlene's at the top, Tage's at the left, and we're rotating out a guy that's not very good on the right. Like, enough of that. Throw Darlene on the right. Put it out there for a couple of games. If it doesn't work, then you go back to something else. What's the difference? You're 0 for 11 anyway. So just a small little idea that I would throw out there if I were the Buffalo Sabres. Now, maybe an opportunity to do that is because of Jiri Kulich. Kulich might not play against Ottawa, and it could be because of Lindy benching him. Get to that when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Keep an eye on that under. I love my sneaky bet of the week, or of the day, I should say, coming a little bit later on today's show. And when you're looking at this Buffalo and Ottawa matchup for tomorrow, the over-under is down to 5.5. Doesn't mean maybe you shouldn't take it. Ottawa without one of their top players. The Sabres, of course, have not been able to score goals this year. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But you want to check out all the odds, you can do that over at FanDuel. And of course, it's not just hockey. It is college football. It is baseball playoffs. And it is the NFL. FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. Sorry, pick a bet. Put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com today to download the FanDuel app and get started. Again, first $5 bet for new customers. If you win it, $300 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com and FanDuel Sportsbook. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Kind of a crazy, crazy for this time of year story that I was not anticipating talking about today, but Lindy Ruff is looking to make some changes, and it's not the power play change that I just threw out there. It's with the lineup in general. And with Josh Norris out for, it sounds like if Friedman threw out their 8 weeks as a timeline, it's going to be months, probably close to the new year, I would say at least, for Josh Norris. With him out, inevitably, you're thinking about centers, who's going to step up, Kulich, McLeod. But Kulich at the top of the list, maybe even playing as the number 1 center going forward. So far this year, has Jiri Kulich been good? I don't think you could really argue the answer to that question is yes. I mean, you can't make that argument for most of the Sabres' best offensive players, but Kulich would be a part of that. So Jiri Kulich, through 3 games, the numbers don't look horrible, but they're not great. 0 goals for the Sabres when he's on the ice, 2 for the opponent. Sabres have been outshot 26-21. Shot attempts are 47-43 in favor of the opponent, and the expected goals are 1.9 to 1.0 in favor of the opponent when Jiri Kulich is out there on the ice. To my eye, he's been kind of invisible. And Lindy is noticing him, but it's because of negative reasons. Pointing out today that he hasn't been good enough, quote unquote. He needs to be a better player for us. He mentioned he needs to be skating more and that he's not showing what he did last season. So Lindy, who is, he wants to be the hard-nosed coach, he's benching him. And we'll see if that means for the game. But for now, Kulich is not rotating in as one of the top 4 centermen. At practice today, no Jiri Kulich. Well, sorry, he was out there, but he was the 5th center behind Tage Thompson, who they moved to the middle, because obviously if Norris is out and you're planning on healthy scratching Kulich, which is a possibility, then Tage has to play down the middle, because otherwise you are nowhere. So Tage at first line center, McLeod at second line center, Krebs at the 3, and then Tyson Kozak as the 4th, with Kulich as the 5th, skating with Mason Geertsen, enforcer, and Jordan Greenway, who's practicing injured. He's not ready to return yet. So that's a pretty damning statement from the coach about a young player that, hey, he might deserve it. And I'm just hoping Lindy pushes the right buttons with Jiri Kulich. I don't know how he'll react to this. Some young players that'll light a fire under their butt, right? And I think that's what Lindy's going for here. Other young players, I mean, they might not react well to this type of coaching, to this type of consequence. Remember, like Don Granato was very not like this. Although Kulich, it might be more about effort and more about skating, but so that might be different. But Granato, when guys would make mistakes, it's like, I'm gonna keep embracing you. I'm gonna keep holding you up and telling you I believe in you and putting you in positions to get the most out of you so that you can keep playing well for me. And a lot of cases that worked with Dahlin, worked with others. I don't know what Kulich is like. I hope this lights a fire under his butt, though, because they desperately need him. They need him in a bad, bad way. And maybe that's too much to ask for a 21-year-old player who had 24 points last season for the Buffalo Sabres to be like, yeah, you got to be a 60-point top 2 centerman for me or we're screwed. But that's where we're at. Whatever the buttons Lindy needs to push, he needs to push the right ones because there's a lot on this player now that Josh Norris is out. I mean, if Tage is going to play center, that should help it feel a little bit more comfortable. But even that, like, their top 6 needs Kulich in it, and it needs to play well, and they need him on the power play. Unless this Dahlin idea I have comes to fruition, if they even try it, which I don't think they will, then Kulich's got to be that right flank power play guy. So we'll see if he ends up getting benched. Lindy said he didn't know yet. He wants to see what this combination looks like in a couple of practices, and I'm sure he wants to see how Kulich responds to it. I'm going to ask him tomorrow morning on this WGR about this and what Kulich is looking like going into the Ottawa game. But keep an eye on it because that's a story to track. Norris is already out, and your second line center, who a lot is counting on this year, especially more now with the first line center out, as a healthy scratch in game number 4, not a great sign. Not a great sign. When we come back, more on this Ottawa matchup. My bet of the day, Ottawa has a massive injury for this game. And we'll get to that when we return here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast presented by Monarch Money. Most people can't name where all their financial accounts are or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that'll bring your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch's built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and you can finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. It's 50% off your first year, monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNHL. Sabres and Senators coming your way tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at KeyBank Center. The Sabres have a couple of home games in a row. Ottawa, by the way, not off to a great start themselves. More on that in a second. But the Sabres have 6 division games in a row upcoming. Ottawa and Florida at home, Montreal on the road, back to home to play Detroit and Toronto, and then a home and home, the second of which is in Toronto on Saturday, October 25th. So next 11 days, 6 matchups against Atlantic Division opponents. And if the Sabres are going to want to be competitive in that division, they got to win these head-to-head matchups. And that starts with Ottawa. Ottawa, who I have high expectations for. I mean, I picked them to win the division. That has not looked great so far for that pick, which is fine, right? 1-2. Won their opener against Tampa, and then they've allowed 10 goals in 2 games against Florida and Nashville to sit at 1-2. And also big injury news for them, and definitely not good for my Atlantic Division bet for Ottawa, is that Brady Tkachuk is out and is going to miss about 4 weeks. So big injury. I mean, he is one of their best 2 players, and he's definitely going to miss tomorrow. So that is a benefit, I guess, in favor of the Buffalo Sabres. That is helpful. You don't ever wish injury on a guy, but that is I mean, they're guys that are going to move up the lineup for the Ottawa Senators. I think they do have pretty good depth, but they don't have a guy that's going to replace a Brady Tkachuk, and they're not as deep as Florida to replace a guy like when they have to replace Matthew Tkachuk. So we'll see how that injury ends up impacting them. But for this game tomorrow, the Sabres, I mentioned how Kulich might be out of the lineup. How they're looking for this game, Benson looks like he's going to come back. Power is hopefully another, day, 2 days healthier. No Michael Kesselring yet, but even just those 2, Benson and a healthier Power, I think can make a big impact. Benson, he's got a big bruise where the cut was under his eye. You can see that maybe there was a lot of swelling that was in his eye, which is why he couldn't play and had to go to the hospital for a couple of days. But he was on the ice with that ugly eye today. So I think he's probably looking good to play tomorrow. I don't know if he'll wear a visor or wear a cage. I feel like if I were him, I would wear the cage for how bad that thing looked, but we'll see. He makes a nice impact, though. I don't know if he'll score goals, but the hope would be that he is going to impact the game overall, that Tage and Tuck, who are playing with him on the line today, are going to score more goals because he's out there. I hope that line stays together. Tage, Tuck, Benson. The McLeod, Doan, Zucker line is a second line, though. It's just not a scoring line. So all this together, Ottawa without Brady Tkachuk. By the way, I was looking, we don't have yet who will start in goal tomorrow for the Ottawa Senators. I think we know Alex Lyon is probably going to play tomorrow. Ullmark has played the first 3 games. However, they play a back-to-back. And what they'll do, whether they play back at home Thursday against Ottawa or against Seattle, we'll see. I think Ullmark probably plays this game, though. On the road, back in Buffalo, you give the backup a nice soft game against Seattle at home. I know everyone out there is like, well, are the Sabres a soft game? Sure. There's a chance that it's the Sabres that the backup plays, of course. But I think I would guess right now that it's Ottawa. So all that together, that it's Ullmark, and all that together, I'm going right back to the under. For my sneaky bet of the day, I'm going to the under. Now, so far, The under has hit in all 3 games for the Buffalo Sabres, and I think I just want to keep riding that until it doesn't work. The number did shift, though. So it's not as good a bet as it was the other night. Under 5.5 goals. I'm still going to take it. However, you are getting plus 114 on the under. So you're making $11 for every 10 you bet. $11.40 actually for every 10 you bet. So I like that. If it was minus money, I probably wouldn't take it, but it's in the plus range. So I'm going to go under 5.5 goals. Again, it's a bet on the Sabres not scoring 3. They score 2. I like my chances of getting the under home there. All right. So I'm 2-0-1 on my best bet record. I know I'm just taking the under and I passed on the Boston game. But the Sabres are 0-3. So far I'm beating them by a good margin. All right. Looking for the first win tomorrow, 7 o'clock against the Ottawa Senators. That is going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. As always, thanks for making us your first listen every day. If you are looking for good fantasy hockey talk, be sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. If you're looking for just a league-wide perspective on things that are happening, Alex Ovechkin 40, he's got a big game against Tampa, and you see Cooper off tonight. You can check out Locked On NHL Game Night. That is available wherever you listen to the podcast here on YouTube as well. We'll talk to you after Sabres and Senators here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.